Across 1,000 years of war, loyalty, migration, faith, and survival, one family moved through the shifting landscapes of medieval Europe and the emerging Atlantic world. From Norman courts to Celtic frontiers, from royal service to colonial hardship, the Payne family stood at the crossroads of history. Welcome back to Domesday to America, the podcast where we trace one family name. Payne, in all of its forms to include pagan, Fitzpayne, Paynell, Daypayne, through the deep time of medieval England and the Atlantic world that followed. This is episode 1, and it's a methods episode. Before we follow anyone into battlefields, manor courts, chancery rolls, or ships bound for Virginia, I need to lay out the central problem of this project and how I'm trying to solve it. Think of this episode as the map legend before the journey, the purpose of Domesday to America. This book, and this podcast series alongside it, is about origins, mobility, and diffusion. Origins doesn't just mean where the name first appears, it means, can the clusters of Paynes we find in different counties and centuries be understood as branches of a common lineage? Or are we looking at multiple unrelated families who happen to share a name? Mobility is about how Paynes moved upward and outward, not only geographically, but socially, from tenants to gentry, from household service to office, from county circles into national and colonial networks. And diffusion is the long arc, how a medieval surname in East Anglia or London becomes visible in the Channel Islands, in the West Country, and then across the Atlantic in the 16th and 17th centuries. What I'm trying to do is not write an old-fashioned pedigree that pretends every Payne is automatically connected to every other Payne. Instead, I'm trying to reconstruct family identity across time using several kinds of evidence together. The Payne problem. Here's the heart of the issue. Payne is a common name in a complex world. It appears early, widely, and in several forms. As a personal name and a surname, pagan or Payne. As a patronymic, Fitzpayne. As a locative or seigneurial form, de Payne, de Paynell, de Payne's Castle, de Thetford. And sometimes as a by-name that unrelated lines adopt through tenancy or service. So the record is thick with Paynes, and that produces what I call false positives. If you're not careful, medieval documents let you connect almost anything to almost anything. Names get shortened, spellings vary, Christian names repeat in cycles, and people move. A John Payne in 1390, Norfolk is not automatically kin to a John Payne in 1390 Suffolk, even if they seem to match in age and status. If you want a single glorious Payne line, you can build one out of thin air. That's the antiquarian trap. But if you assume the name is too common to mean anything, you miss real continuities. That's the modern skeptical trap. So the question becomes, how do we avoid the potential errors? 3 hazards we have to respect. I treat 3 things as constant dangers through the whole book. Hazard 1, name density and variation. Payne shows up everywhere, and medieval spelling doesn't respect our modern categories. Hazard 2, surname magnets. Big houses and institutions draw in servants, tenants, clerks, soldiers, and clients. Those people may carry a surname into new regions without carrying blood kinship. For Paynes, the magnets include the De Vere affinity, the Duchy of Lancaster, Welsh Marcher and East Anglian legal circles, the London wine trade, and Channel Island maritime networks. Each of those ecosystems can spread a surname without proving shared descent. Hazard 3, the pre-1270 documentary gap. Below the noble grade, continuous family documentation is rare before the late 13th century. Yet the big origins question lives exactly in that earlier period. So we need methods that don't pretend those gaps don't exist. The thesis: cautious, not triumphal. Here's the thesis I'm working with, and I stress this is cautious, academic, and explicitly labelled as such. The Payne families treated in this project most plausibly descend from an insular Celtic R1b paternal lineage. Over time, that lineage was Normanized through service, landholding, and assimilation into Anglo-Norman and Plantagenet structures. What does that mean in plain language? It means that biologically, the dominant Payne line I've tested looks Celtic in deep origin, not a fresh import from Normandy. But socially and culturally, many Paynes become fully embedded in Norman and English elite systems. The earliest linkage, pre-1200 especially, between Irish, British, Channel Island and Norman-named Paynes remains probabilistic, not proven. So I'm not presenting a founding figure as certainty yet. I'm presenting a historical hypothesis that's tested by multiple streams of evidence converging on the same answer. The 4 evidence streams. To do that convergence, I'm using 4 categories of evidence. Each one alone is incomplete. Together, they can stabilize a reconstruction. First, documentary genealogy. That's the core medieval toolkit. Inquisitions post-mortem, close and patent rolls, feet of fines, manorial court rolls and rentals, parliamentary and civic records, wills and registers once they survive. But the key is not just collecting names, it's tracing patterns in landholding, office holding, marriages, and witness lists. When those patterns recur across time, they start behaving like kinship signals. Second, prosopography and patronage networks. Prosopography is basically a group biography method. Instead of focusing only on a single pedigree, we reconstruct a career cluster. Who appears together, works together, holds offices under the same lords, marries within the same circles, and moves within the same affinity ecosystems. Prosopography does not replace genealogy. It explains how genealogy becomes historically possible. A Payne in Norfolk serving Lancaster isn't proof he's kin to a Payne in Suffolk. But if both lines re-enter the same Lancastrian and East Anglian circles across generations, and if heraldry and DNA also line up, prosopography supplies the social mechanism behind a biological relationship. Of course, there is also the chance that names will occasionally appear together in a way that allows identification too. Third, heraldry. I'm cautious here. Arms can be borrowed, adopted, differenced, even just claimed later by people who wanted a better story. So heraldry is not standalone proof. But when a specific Payne armorial pattern repeats across regions inside documented kin contexts, it becomes meaningful. In this project, I treat heraldry as identity signaling, secondary support that either strengthens or weakens a proposed link. Fourth, paternal Y chromosome DNA. This has been a rare gift in the Payne problem. I have a confirmed high-resolution Big Y match in R1b, including a close match to Kiltasheen 22, skeletal remains in Roscommon Island, dated roughly 960 to 1300, a time when records of several Paynes are recorded there. DNA can't tell you a medieval man's name, but it can tell you. 2 living men sharing a rare Big Y signature almost certainly share a paternal ancestor. Multiple Payne clusters sharing that signature likely reflect one medieval stock. And any specific documentary, Payne is tentatively assigned only when geography and records align, so DNA is a constraint and guide, not a replacement for archives. The method, convergence, not single-point proof. Because no single stream is decisive, the method is convergent reconstruction. Here's the workflow you'll see throughout the book and through future episodes. 1. Identify clusters, place-based and career-based Paynes in primary sources. 2. Trace local continuities, land, offices, marriages within each cluster. 3. Look for bridges across clusters using patronage, naming patterns, property rights, heraldry, and DNA. 4. Assign a confidence level to every proposed link. Proven, very probable, plausible, speculative, and I'm strict about this. The book refuses to wish a pedigree into existence. If a link is only plausible, I say so. If it's speculative, I flag it as such. 7. Why this matters. So why do all this? First, because pain lets us study how biological lineage and social lineage interact. Surnames drift, offices drift, families attach to new patrons, but a paternal line can persist through all of it. Second, because the corridor we're following, East Anglia, Lancaster Presence, London Trade, Channel Island Maritime Networks, is historically real. The Payne case shows families moving along that corridor through law, commerce, service, and marriage. Third, because combining serious archival work with high-resolution DNA gives us a model for responsible genetic genealogy in medieval contexts. Not DNA as magic, DNA as discipline. So that's the map and method. From here on, we get to tell stories. People in manors, courts, affinities, parliaments, ships, and eventually in the colonies. Episode 2 will begin establishing the medieval East Anglian clusters and the first documentary trail. If you're following along in the book, that's chapter 2. And if you're listening in real time as this reconstruction evolves, thank you. This is living history, and I'm logging revisions transparently as the evidence grows. I'm Patrick Allen Payne, and you've been listening to Domesday to America. If you have ever wondered how a single lineage can illuminate the rise of kingdoms, the fall of dynasties, the migrations of peoples, and the endurance of identity across continents, you are in the right place. Welcome to the journey.